This cheap, affordable, however you would like to call it, phone gimbal has been getting a lot of attention from vloggers who are looking for budget-friendly gears and stuff for their video projects. So as a pro level Ronin SE user that I adapted as a phone gimbal as well while I'm still saving to get a Shine Smooth 5 someday, let's see if this Prestigio 3-axis gimbal for smartphones is good enough to get the job done. And let's find out, can this budget gimbal go from landscape to vertical or portrait mode automatically? And for the most important question from cinematic gimbal users, can this gimbal do the 360 barrel roll? Let's find out. What is up, fellow video making enthusiasts? Z here, and in this channel we share ideas on how to make creative videos under budget on a weekly basis. And para sa episode na to, this is going to be a product test and review for the Prestigio 3-axis gimbal for smartphones. Bought this one for the price of 2,999 pesos or roughly 53 US dollars. I got this black carrying case, nylon sling for the case, wrist strap, charging cord but charger not included, user manual, and the gimbal itself. Straight out of the box, just with how it looks and feels, it's obviously a budget item, but nonetheless, as long as it can give us what we need from it, and that is for stabilizing our smartphone footages, it is all fine. Just remember that durability wise though, just be extra careful in handling it because it might break sooner or later without you knowing it. Molded hard plastic, most of the weight is from the upper half where the arms are, but in all, it feels good enough on my hand. Not too heavy, not too light either. Claims it can give us 9 to 12 hours of gimbal operation, while for charging, to get it fully charged, that will be 4 to 5 hours of waiting time. And a fair warning though guys, it claims it is up for 250 grams maximum capacity or payload. But not only I read an online article describing this gimbal to only capable of handling nothing more than 200 grams, it indeed struggled so bad handling my iPhone 8 Plus that only weighs 202 grams. I'm currently using it with an iPhone 6 with a small weight of 129 grams just to be on the safe side. But it's also did well with my Oppo F1S Plus and Samsung J7 Prime 145 and 167 grams respectively. And sometimes I borrow my wife's iPhone 10, 174 grams in weight. So basically anything below 200 grams this gimbal can handle efficiently well. If you go beyond that, then expect to wear and damage your gimbal's motors much too sooner than expected. All plastic construction, no padding on the grip, which might be a problem for some who have sweaty hands like me, especially during humid days and we're filming for long hours. Attaching and balancing your phone on this gimbal is easy peasy. Clamp the phone in with the spring-loaded holder, bottom end first, and resting against the rubber mount on the inner side of the tilt motor. Loosen the knob holding the roll arm, extend it out, and adjust the length accordingly until the phone is balanced. Not necessarily perfect, but at least close enough to being horizontally level. Tighten the knob back in and you're good to go. On the control panel, we have a textured joystick to control the arms. A tiny LED light at the upper left for the battery status, while at the upper right, the LED light is for the gimbal status or mode, and I have a personal issue about that. During my field test of this gimbal, I often find myself forgetting what mode I was currently on because we only got one tiny light for the mode indicator, considering we got 4 different follow modes programmed in this gimbal. By the way, if the right LED light flashes red and blue, that means the gimbal is overloaded, so you either need to rebalance it or use a much lighter phone. Power button at the lower left, mode button at the lower right, trigger button at the front of the handle, 2 power slots at the left side. The smaller one is an in port for charging the gimbal, while the bigger one is an out port because you can use this gimbal as a power bank to charge your phone when needed. But you're not gonna be able to do that while the phone is fixed on the gimbal because the bottom end of the phone where the charging port is located is blocked or partially blocked by the tilt motor. But it's comforting enough to know that we have a power bank ready anytime to charge our phone while we're somewhere out there and we need to make an emergency call or send an emergency message and our phone's about to die. Going to the other side of the handle at the right, we got a small switch for zooming in and out, but this will only work if the gimbal is connected to the prescribed Gimbal Pro camera app running on the phone that you fix on the gimbal for your camera or as your camera. Speaking of Gimbal Pro, this is a third-party camera app that this gimbal was programmed to work with and gives some of the buttons on the gimbal some extra or added functions. You can get this app for free from either the Google Play Store for Android phones or from the Apple Store for iOS users. Take note guys that you don't actually need to use the Gimbal Pro camera app if you're only after the stabilization of your smartphone video recording. And take note, that all the functions of the mode button are programmed directly on the gimbal. So all of these different functions are available for you even without the app. And let's talk about those functions now. If you press the mode button once each time, you will be cycling through the 4 different follow modes on each press of the button. Once the gimbal is powered on, you are already on the first and default follow mode, which is the AF or all follow mode. With this, both the tilt and the pan motors are disabled, making the camera follow the movement of the handle. But the roll motor, which is always the case, is active to keep the phone horizontally leveled and stable. So the roll motor is always active. One press on the mode button again and you are now on the HF or the half follow mode. This time, only the pan motor is disabled, so the camera is following the direction of the handle. But the camera stays pointed forward with the tilt motor, and the horizontal orientation again is kept in check by the roll motor that stays active. One more press and we are now on the LF or the lock full mode. All motors are now active, so the phone stays pointed forward at the same direction and horizontally leveled no matter how you move the gimbal. For the last follow mode with another single press of the mode button is the FPV mode or the first person view. In filmmaking, this is more appropriately called the POV mode or the point of view mode. With this, all of the motors are disabled. The gimbal motors are frozen dead, so the camera will just follow every movement of the angles should do with the gimbal. Basically, this is the mode used when you wish to get that handheld shake where the camera lens acts as the viewer's own eyes, giving them the sensation of physically being part of the action. Still with the mode button and still without using the Gimbal Pro application, if one press on the mode button will get you to the next follow mode, 2 quick presses on the mode button will automatically center or will recenter the gimbal. If you tilt the gimbal slightly forward, somewhat close to 45 degrees, and take note, you really need to tilt the gimbal forward for this one or else something will get damaged. Press the mode button 3 times. The gimbal arms will automatically swing or flip from horizontal camera orientation to vertical or portrait mode. So this answers the question if this gimbal can switch from landscape to portrait automatically. The answer is yes. But you can only go use this mode while the gimbal is tilted, because if you switch from horizontal to vertical while holding the gimbal upright, the extended roll arm will be obstructed by the pan motor as it swings the phone to vertical orientation. Tilting the gimbal will create enough separation to allow the roll arm to swing clear past the pan motor. And while still tilted, press the mode button again 3 times and it will swing back to its default horizontal orientation. But if you really wish to use this gimbal in portrait orientation throughout your recording while the gimbal is upright, like for recording TikTok videos while the gimbal is on a tripod for example, the instruction is to loosen the knob holder or the knob holding the phone holder and then twisting the phone holder around to get the phone vertically upright. And those are the different functions of the mode button without the Gimbal Pro app. 1 tap to move from one follow mode to the next, 2 taps to recenter the gimbal arms, and 3 taps to flip from landscape to vertical camera orientation while the gimbal is tilted, and 3 taps to go back. In fact, the mode button is the only dedicated button of the gimbal. It doesn't need the app at all to give you everything it can do. But as far as the other buttons on the gimbal are concerned, including the trigger, they will only work if the gimbal is connected to the Gimbal Pro camera application. For the other extra functions of the power button when connected to the app, aside from switching on and off the gimbal, 2 quick presses will switch back and forth between the rear-facing camera and the front or selfie camera of your phone. Remember, this is while the gimbal is connected to the camera app on the phone. 3 presses on the power button will switch the app between picture and video shooting mode. As for the trigger, this will act as both the shutter and the record button depending on what shooting mode you are in. On picture mode, pulling the trigger will make the camera app shoot pictures. While in video mode, of course, it will start the video recording. and then end the recording with another squeeze of the trigger. To test the stabilization performance of this budget gimbal, I benchmarked it against my DJI Ronin SE camera gimbal that I set up as a phone gimbal using the same phone, and also did the same test with the phone handheld to see how much improvement we can get from this gimbal, and I am impressed with the result. Here are all three during the walking test, recorded in 60 frames per second by the way, and play back at normal speed right now on your screen. Here we have the Prestigio on the left versus the footage with the Ronin SC on the right. This is the Prestigio walking test versus handheld. Let's see how they look like in slow-mo. This time we're running or jogging still at 60 frames per second and play back at normal speed. Running test at slow-mo. Like I said, I was impressed with the stabilization we saw using this Prestigio budget phone gimbal. It's almost as good as the stabilization we can get from a professional camera gimbal like my DJI Ronin SC. And definitely a far better looking compared to the camera footage taken while handheld. The only issue really here is that this is just a budget gimbal and the motors are not really that heavy duty. In fact, like I said at the early part of this video, even the 202 grams weight of an iPhone 8 Plus is enough to damage the motors, despite the box claiming it can handle up to 250 grams of payload. So really, for casual video makers, this will definitely do the job as far as stabilization is concerned. But for serious filmmaking, still, it's just a budget gimbal and with not so durable motors and construction. By the way, power tip for the gimbal newbies, even professional gimbals will not be able to remove the up and down bobbing movement of our footages if we are walking or running while recording. But we can somehow cut down the up and down movement from our recording while walking by doing what we call the ninja walk. Knees slightly bent, hips down, heel first before the toes as we step and move forward. Aside from that, we can also do a dolly forward or dolly backward effect with the gimbal without having to make a single step by spreading forward one of our legs and move our upper torso forward or backward while extending our arms with the gimbal forward or pulling them back out. Now for our last and final question that every gimbal experienced users are familiar are waiting to hear. Can this Prestigio 3-axis budget phone gimbal do the 360 barrel roll? The answer is both yes and no. Yes, it can somewhat do a spinning video effect, but not exactly all the way around. That's because this gimbal is designed with stoppers, preventing the pan motor from even making a complete circle. So the best we can get from this gimbal is only about 350 or 340 degree rotation. The best way is to start the spin from one side of the stopper, ending at the other side of the stopper. To do this limited barrel roll effect, set your follow mode to FPV mode or the fourth follow mode. Hold the gimbal forward horizontally like a flashlight. Push the joystick forward to tilt the phone camera up and point the lens forward. To create the barrel roll effect, push the joystick whether to the left or to the right to start the pan motor spinning towards that direction. Or you can also push it first to one side of the stopper like I said a while ago and spin it around until it ends on the other side of the stopper to get as much rotation as you can. And so that is how you can create the rolling shot effect with this gimbal. For my final thoughts, again, for casual video recording or vlogging where stabilization is a big plus to get a better quality footage, this will do just fine. But if you are planning to get this for even amateur but serious filmmaking projects, I'd say think twice. But it's your call. You do the math, since I'm probably bad with numbers. I personally don't have any plans of using the Gimbal Pro application with this gimbal, but I honestly can say there are interesting features available in there that are worth trying, like face and object tracking, 360 panoramic shooting, grid shooting, motion time-lapse. So check out this video about that. And if you're a Ronin SE owner and you want to learn how to set it up as a phone gimbal, here's a beginner tutorial that will show you how to do it. That's a wrap, you guys. Like and share and subscribe. Thank you so much for your time, and see you in the next one, which is probably next week unless you're watching a different video that is already uploaded. God bless.